All right, we are here live, and I have Fred from band Daymoon.
Hello, Ron. Yep. With this.
There we go. Yes, got the new one.
That was cool.
Yeah. I've been listening to this, and it's just like when I first got into your music when you sent me your very first one years ago. I it has a lot of very eclectic music, but it's not, and it doesn't. You can't really pigeonhole it into a certain direct category, except just to say it's progressive because it does all different things. And
It
and
should, yeah.
yeah, I do remember when you first sent that the CD to me, and unfortunately since then I kind of misplaced it, but I'm glad you sent me the a digital version of it so that I can revisit it. And um, amazing how the difference is from each album. It's almost like you're getting a little more eclectic, a little more complex, and and I was reading some reviews. I don't remember which album it was, but they were saying that you have to be in a certain mood to sit, to sit through a whole album, and and I think that that's what makes this genre, to me at least, fun. That you're not going to get the music the first time around. And it take you a while to get and understand the whole album.
Yeah, it wasn't written in one piece. So.
Right.
It wasn't probably meant to be. Well, at least the latest one wasn't meant to be listened to in one piece necessarily if one doesn't want to, even though there's a concept behind it and it has a specific flow that we wanted. The previous albums, yes, they were concept albums, so at least the second and the third, and they were meant to be. Well, that's a very difficult one, yeah.
That's what I
Um,
was reading. I was reading some people's. That's where I got. They were saying it was a very difficult listen, but it's like I think this really the whole point of progressive rock is it's not supposed to be easy. If you want easy, go get a pop album. You
right,
know,
yes.
you know.
Did you know the song "Flick of the Wrist" by Queen?
Yes,
Yes, that was the first song where I had to. I remember I was a kid and I had to jump back. I had to pick up the needle from the record and put it back to the beginning to actually get it, and several
right.
times. And that was so much fun. The first time I had fun when I thought a song sounded strangely disconnected. That song, "Flick of the Wrist" is. Um, and that's always fascinated me. The idea that not music that doesn't catch you, doesn't get through you that at the first listen, um, but rather you have to go back and listen to it again. I mean, I love easy prog, if I'm to put it like that. Say, I love Neil Morse, I love the Flower Kings.
Oh, yeah,
Um, they're fantastic, but they're easy as far as I'm concerned. I listen to them and it's great stuff, and you needn't go back to get it, you know. But there's
right.
other stuff where you really have to go back, like Univers Zero, those Belgian
Oh, yeah,
avant-garde stuff. You have to go back and to get it. And maybe you don't like it in the end. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do. This Myriador, this Canadian band, for example, they're really not easy to listen to. And I love them from the
right.
bottom of my heart, because you have to go back, as you said. You have to be in a very specific mood to listen to that.
And I also think on headphones, so you can get everything that's going on.
Yeah. Otherwise, you miss out on all the strange sounds that I love putting everywhere, all over the place.
Right,
It's
right.
true. Yeah. So yeah, the one that you just showed, our third album, that was indeed really difficult, very
Yeah.
difficult, even to record at that time when before I started that, I actually thought of quitting music, and that was all started by my then wife's death from cancer,
Oh,
and this is all, well, it's therapeutic in a way, and cathartic, if you want to. We had very strange reviews from that. A lot of people said, "Oh, the vocals are so remote. They feel like they are detached from the music." That's what I wanted, but people. I didn't make that album really for people to like. I think
right, right. Well, music really is great healing. You know, whatever whatever it is that happens. From you know a death of a loved one to something difficult time to go through. It's always good to just put on music. It I don't know. It helps you heal.
hmm Yes, that was my idea behind that, or difficult times to go through, as we all are going through. And I think erosion is a bit about that. Difficult times for some people. For some people, it's happy times.
Right,
Definitely not for me, with my ideals and ideas.
right.
These are not necessarily happy times. Um, it's a bit
Yeah,
tricky. Yeah.
especially this pandemic is really it's still continuing. I know
Mhm.
some people want to believe that it's not, um, uh, and uh, so it's I've seen a lot of people going back to concerts like as if it really is not going on, and then I hear people are still getting sick and they're going to concerts. So it's like I'm trying to figure out, you know, it, I I don't think for me personally it's safe to go back to that.
And I don't. Well, as we are speaking, as you know, right? Lavinia, our singer, was supposed to be here as well, and she's down with COVID and a pretty bad fever, in fact.
Yeah.
She can't even speak properly at this moment. That's why she said, we'll have to ditch, unfortunately, and I mean, I myself had COVID for the first time just about 2 months ago.
Right.
It was high risk for me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's over, and it can just flip again, and the virus can go nasty again, etc.,
Oh yeah.
etc. But well, what can you do? Well, I mean, when I say bad times, erosions, it's not only about the pandemic, of course. It's also about politics
Oh yes.
and the state of the world at large.
Well, the title really kind of says it all.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah,
um,
I'm really sad that Putin happened, because it was so predictable in the end. We didn't include him because he wasn't a thing at the time.
right.
But erosion started in 2016, um, 2015, 2016 about. And so we didn't think about Putin, but Putin is just the absolute logical consequence
Right.
of politicians doing whatever they like,
Yeah.
and
And
being stupid and manly and macho crap. It's
oh, I know.
horrid, horrid.
It it just makes it so much more difficult for us to live in this world. When those type of leaders basically take the joy out of things, and pit people against people when it's really not people against people. It's more government against government.
hmm
because I don't look at people from other countries as representative of their government. The if the government's bad, that's in a separate league than the people themselves, especially musicians. I like speaking to musicians from anywhere, because I know that they're whether they say it publicly or in their music, I know if they have a bad government, they want to, stay as far away from that. They don't want to be associated with, you know, because, there was our time um, that we, 2016 to 2020, where we didn't have a nice government
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes.
So, it was didn't represent myself, it's like, and quite a few others. So it's like, I think every country all over the world has gone through that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Some more
what's
than
sad,
others.
I think there's a word, I'd love to probably include that in the next album. I don't know, which has become offensive. The word snowflake, I think it is in American,
Oh,
which I
yes.
think expresses the typical thing behind that kind of modern retro thinking, which say Trump, etc. Not only Boris Johnson and so forth,
Oh, yeah.
Putin, whoever you want, King Jong-un.
Yeah, you can put any name in there.
And they call us, people like us, snowflakes.
Right.
It's and I've heard this quite a few times while making this album. I've exchanged messages with fans who dropped out. We had more fans before than we have now,
Right.
because of the political thing behind it. And you get mails where, yeah, you're a snowflake. You're, like wet, and you're, you know what I mean, a wimp.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, whenever you say you want to be kind, that's how the album pretty much starts off. Like Trump saying, we have to totally destroy, and I say kindness.
Exactly. Well, the thing is this, honestly, we are going to have differences, whether it's how we look, how we speak, and what deity we believe in. Those are going to always be those. But if we just look past that and just say we're all human beings, we need to treat people the way we want to be treated. So unless you like to be treated bad, treat people good. And that's why I think with music, I think it brings everybody together in a way.
Well, we didn't try with this one. The next one we will be very consensual again. But this one, of course, is very, very blatantly left wing, and we say so pretty much on the thing, on the
right. Yeah.
on the cover and all over the place. There's sort of, well, not extreme left wing or anything, but it's anti-fascist, anti-Nazi, etc. totalitarian.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing, well, we just said it loud, and next album will be nice and sweet again. Sing about unicorns. So, like,
I guess that's why you put on there at the bottom, it says to be continued.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Mind you, next album is going to be far more eclectic, of course.
Oh, hey, you can't do the same album over and over again, or else it gets very boring.
Yes.
And then people might go, well, wait a second, that sounds like the previous album. What did you do? Just use the same music and put new lyrics?
Yeah. Well, it's comfy, isn't it, when people do that? When our heroes reproduce the same sound over and over again, and it's very comfortable, and we buy the stuff again. We do, period. Then you listen to it, and then when after you've bought it and listened to it, you think like, okay, yeah, well, okay, let's put that on the shelf as well, and I'll listen to it again next year, maybe.
Right, right.
It happens
Yeah,
all the time, you know.
there's very few albums that I have where I listen to it once and that's all I could do because it's very simple sounding, whether or not, they could be accomplished musicians that do it, but the album sounds very simple and there's nothing to it. And then when you finish the album, you go, well, I know how that all sounds, so I'll put that away. But with that, bands like Daymoon with the music is you got to listen to it again because you're gonna you'll hear something completely different.
Mhm.
Because when I went to go listen to the first one again, I was like going, okay, well, I was reading my review that I did of it years ago, and I was listening to it while I was reading the review, and I was like going, it's amazing how I got back to that point when I was first listening to the review kind of helped me bring it all back.
Mhm.
And then I believe your second album, a friend of mine reviewed it for me on my site. What was it? The Fabric of Divine Space?
Yes, Space Divine. Yes,
Space
indeed.
Divine, yeah.
Yes.
And I listened to that. That's a that's a really good one. I
Yeah, I
mean,
love that. So that's my favorite in our catalog, so to speak. That took like I think 11 years. That's a very, very long story.
oh wow.
Yeah, 11 years is a bit. But only because it was recorded by two different teams. The first one I had no experience, and it was the first album that I ever recorded, with other people. Um, was mostly with people from the US and from Canada. Well, the internet was just not really good enough then, and computers weren't. I remember our drummer, for example, he was using a Linux computer, and I think he had 11 sound cards in it, each one for each microphone. And I just imagine how difficult that is, to cope with. Um, and we finished the album sort of, and it never sounded really good. Then much later, several years later, um, 5 or 6 years later, yes, the local band that I had here, we started again, um, re-recording everything, pretty much everything, except some things that were good enough, like the vocals were perfect and some of the drums were. So that was a very difficult album. Um, I'm very, very proud of it because the story took me so long to develop and
Right.
come up with,
Well, that's
Um,
with progressive rock bands, unfortunately, it's not a big money making machine. So things like that can happen. Also, too, is like people that would run out of money, or they would have to you know uh, devote all their time towards their day job. You know,
mhm. Yes,
you
yes,
know.
yes, certainly, yes, yes, yes.
So an album that would take someone that's been on the top 40 maybe a year to complete fully. Um, Nowadays, I mean, I think people, even the mainstream takes a long time creating their music, for well.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah,
But
mainstream music is so perfectionist nowadays that I think they sit down for 2 days just to think about half a second in the song or something,
right,
Not that I like it, but I must admit, music has become extremely perfect. It's really annoying, Yeah, but with Fabric of Space Divine, one fun fact is that we lost 7 singers, all of them for religious reasons. That's that's a tricky one.
oh wow,
Yes, because all of them figured out at some point what the album was about. And all of a sudden they saw that one of the songs is going to be about Islam in a positive way. The other one about multiple gods, positive. One about Christianity, positive. One against God and atheism, that kind of thing. So people just dropped out when they understood what the thing was about. That was very difficult as well. Yes, but I'm very, very proud of that album. That's one I'd love to have on, to show people on vinyl. The CD has a little timeline on it, which is very hard to read, which represents the history of the universe. And in comparison to what's happening on the album, so here's the Big Bang, and here's the end of our universe. Actually, not ours. That's the scientific joke at the end of the album, that the whole album is about a different universe, not ours. When you hear the last ping on the album, that's when ours starts with the Big Bang. That's a scientific joke for
right
for people who love hard science fiction like me.
Well, that just kind of reminded me a little bit of that Pain of Salvation album B,
yes,
where they start and they gradually, it's almost like, what is that, the history of man, but but
wonderful album. I love that.
I like those kind of albums where they make you think, whether or not, your views or my views are going to be the same, but it just, for an open-minded person, to be able to think that there's more out there than your way of thinking. And you have to be open to it. So because, I don't know, it just, things don't go well when you're very close. And we're showing that nowadays,
Yes,
with where the world's going.
Yeah, with people being totally polarized and making it very difficult not to be. I find, it's when you have people who actually want to promote hatred, literally, and I don't think this happened before in humanity, that literally, as it does now. People just say, someone like Putin saying we can destroy the world. Okay, we will if. On the other side, saying in Western society, all of a sudden you hear similar voices as well, and you think, "Oh God, where's this going? This has never happened before. It's mankind going back to the Stone Age."
It feels like it. It certainly feels like it, and then of course, Mother Nature decided to throw in the, COVID into the mix. It's like, who knows what's next?
Yes, it's very, very, very scary.
It is. It's like now not only are we, seems like people are afraid of other people. Now it's like being afraid of, Mother Nature and what she can do to us.
Well, I ended erosion. The concept behind the album is mine. The rest of the music was more or less created by everyone in the band in some or other way. But the concept and the sequence is mine, and the last track is completely mine. And that's my hope, which I know nowadays is controversial, that humankind has a destiny. And on the album, I say that quite clearly, where I personally believe that humanity will have to expand outward. And I know it's controversial. I've spoken to people in the meantime who said, no, human beings must remain on the planet. We must focus on this here, which I do not deny. But my view is that there's a big idea, which is also in Fabric of Space Divine, you know, a big design for humanity, or maybe at least in the universe, so to speak. There's a big design evolution, and mankind may or not be part of it, depending on what humanity decides. You know? But anyway, that's my personal thing, which I put on every album in one way or another.
Well, it's
Pretty
good to kind
much.
of have your, have a little personalized stamp to it, and and I think what people need to understand too is this is your you know um your thoughts. You're not pushing it on anybody. You're saying this is what I think. This is my point of view on what's going on. And if you share it, that's fantastic. If you don't, we can have a civil communication about it. You don't have to. Some people, if you say the wrong thing to them, they just get all angry. Like, it's like you just walked over their grave, so to speak. Like, how dare you curse my my ancestors by
Yes.
saying, your thoughts. And it's like, you know, that's what I think is wonderful about human beings is, we all have different, or else we'd be.
Quite, yes. So that's what I think the album also brings parts of that across. As I said, the Erosion, I think, is a very heavy album in terms of concept, in terms of even the music at times. I think it's very difficult to take in. Might be, at least in some places. Also, thanks to Vince Welch of Bent Knee, who made it sound really big. Really quite, it's really surprised when he sent the stuff back to us. And but as I said, the album is dark. It's ironic, yes, as well, but it has a conciliatory note to it at the end, I hope. So that's what I try to do,
Yeah.
I think, what once when I started writing progressive rock when I was 18 or so, and I had a band in Portugal, my first band, and our drummer was from a really famous pop band, as well as he had another band, very famous heavy metal band. Okay, but he also played with us, and I wrote all my stuff. And one day we went home on the train, and he said to me, "Fred, tell me, why do you write that shit? I mean, no one listens to that. I don't get it." I said to him, I said I was 18. I said, to me, music was always a friend, a very personal, close friend. Listening to, say, Klaatu or whatever, bands I loved when I was younger. And they were my friends. They were very personal, close friends. And that's what I want to do with my own music. I want it to be close and personal. I don't know if people get it, but I think they do. That it's always very personal, very close. And
Well, for
if you think of other prog bands, a lot of prog bands are not personal. They write sort of like lyrics that are. I don't want to say unicorns. Some do that, but
right.
some are sort of slightly social, but not too much. Let's not overdo it, be consensual. I don't try to do that. I talk about my own flaws. I talk about flaws of humanity, the flaws of the band members, if need be, etc.
Right.
So I hope to make music that can be a friend to someone in the late hours of the night.
Oh yeah. Hey, I agree with that. That music is a friend. I mean, and for the most part, a friend that doesn't disappoint. Because you can always go back to that album, the one that you feel like when you listen to it, you feel maybe in a safe zone,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, that's one of the things why, a majority of the stuff behind me, I mean, at any given time, I can pick out an album and listen to it, and I can remember not so much the first time I heard it, but I can remember feelings that of yes, safety, an escape from reality, because sometimes we really
Mhm.
do need that,
Mhm.
because sometimes reality really gives you a nice, gut punch, and you need to escape from it. And so, but then also too is albums, like Erosion um, and Fabric, they have philosophical questions and thoughts and ideas that are going around inside your head, and it does trigger in a way, and I think in a good way, especially it triggers people into thinking. Then then you were mentioning that you lost um a fandom because of some of your ideas. That's because unfortunately those people were very close-minded. They only believed in right here. They had they weren't um, open to see what else is out.
Well,
So
it's also very important that sometimes we have to risk, we have to take that risk, I read this somewhere. Don't ask me, on a wall or maybe in some meme or whatever. Being silent being is agreeing. If you don't speak up, you agree, and sometimes one has to speak up. It's just if you see someone getting beaten up on the train or whatever. If you see a colored person or a foreigner or whatever being mistreated, one has to speak up. I remember once a friend of mine took me to a bar here in Portugal. I was born in Germany and I don't exactly look Portuguese.
right,
He took me to a bar, and just for the joke of it. At the time, there were lots of Ukrainians in Portugal. There still are, but that was the first wave, and there were lots of them in the, I don't know, early 90s or so. Took me to a bar, and there's being German people always like, oh yeah, he's German. Yes, well, some sort of respect behind all something, And he introduced me as being a Ukrainian, and people just despised me. It's like, oh, it's just one of those Ukrainians who sleep behind the supermarket or whatever.
right.
That's how easy it is to slip into someone else's skin and understand what the world is about, and how much prejudice there is out there, and how
Oh
much
yeah, and
wickedness and lack of kindness. I'm lucky. I live in Portugal, where, as a rule, people are very, very kind, welcoming. Well, other countries, like say my native Germany, is not exactly a kind country. Um, at least in my experience. I'm not saying that all Germans are like that, but general
right.
experience, you go to the supermarket and you'll find a hard time getting someone smiling at you, or you smile at them and they probably look at you like, why? Like
Why?
that. Whereas here in Portugal, they're going to smile back and probably say something really nice.
Well,
It's
it's
it's a
it's
tough world.
it's also the same way here. In the United States, especially in the heavily populated areas, everybody looks down.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
they or and nowadays everybody's on their phone, so that makes it even more. It's like you feel like what's going on here. It's like, but if you go into the smaller areas, you do tend to find a little more kindness, a little more people kind of going out of their way to help.
yeah. Hmm.
So I mean, so I have to assume that that's everywhere. So if in a smaller uh, city or town in Portugal will be more friendly than, a big city,
Well,
because
not so strongly as say in Central Europe or so. People in the city. I mean, I live like 20 minutes from Lisbon, from the capital, and that's a 3 million people city, if you include the larger metropolitan area. So it's pretty much almost as big as say Berlin in Germany or other big capitals and cities. But no, there are slight differences between cultures often. Anyway, I live in Portugal, and that's that's one of the reasons why I chose it when I was 17 or whatever. I picked Portugal. I love the country. Um, we still haven't got a single Portuguese song on the albums. not on one. Lavinia's dying to do one. She's told me a million times we must do a song in Portuguese, and we might. The third album has a Portuguese title, at least. That's not.
right.
And we have some Portuguese guitar on. The next one, hang on, I'll show you something. The next one will feature this. It's
Yeah.
it's a Portuguese ukulele.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's called cavaquinho. So I'm learning that. It's very simple, but just to see what I can do with this,
Right. I watched about a week ago, I watched your video where you were discussing erosion and how you were discussing different musical instruments, and it's kind of interesting when bands use uh I don't want to say unusual, but to because music, everybody thinks of guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, and that's it. But
Mm.
if there's like a certain musical instrument that's that was used in a certain region, because you have like you have that, like, you said the ukulele post put up, and then I forget what it was. There was a wind instrument that you were talking about, and so it's like if you, and it's so neat to see like other non-traditional rock instruments being used.
Yeah, I love seeing musicians using an instrument from a different country, and they use it in their own way. Like for example, Roine Stolt from the Flower Kings, he bought a Portuguese guitar, which I haven't got here. It's a bit more complex to play, and he used it at least on one of the Flower Kings albums. That was really interesting to hear it. No one else would probably figure out that that is a Portuguese guitar. It sounds a bit like a mandolin. But I got it. So it's really interesting to see what someone does with an instrument that's not their own, and I don't think he listened to Portuguese music to record on it. He just did what he thought the instrument wants, and that was really interesting. That's more or less what I do very often myself, of course.
Right.
Someone gives you a Japanese instrument, well, let's just see what you can do with this. And sometimes the song is born on Erosion. There are several bits where you hear an Arab sounding string instrument. For example, on Transigene Express. Hang on, what was I saying? I don't even know my own song titles. So yeah, Transigene Express. Yes, it starts with someone inside a mosque. Apparently, I tried to explain that quickly in the lyrics, and then you hear someone playing a stringed instrument, just on a solo. Right, that's me on a saz. A saz is a Turkish instrument that I bought from the internet, and I had a great time using that because it forces you to rethink your whole musical understanding. I mean, the instrument has quarter notes. Like, I don't know if you play the guitar or
No, no.
or the
I,
piano
d-
or
I tried playing the guitar when I was in third grade, and it didn't go that well because the teacher, he was going to teach me folk music,
yeah.
but the only guitar I was able to get a hold of was my mother's friend had a 12 string,
Oh,
and yes, so
oh,
I was quickly discouraged, so
yes.
I never got back into that, you know,
Oh,
and I kind of wish that I wasn't discouraged because it's, you know, I don't think I would want to be in a band or anything like that, but just to relax and, you know, and enjoy the sounds, you know, off of the guitar would be wonderful. Or, you know, maybe even a keyboard,
a
you
keyboard
know.
is perfect for that because it doesn't. It's more with the guitar. You need a lot of muscle memory, and you have to train your muscles because it can actually hurt. It does hurt, as you discovered on a 12-string guitar. You know, trying to play a guitar can hurt, whereas the keyboard doesn't hurt. And most keyboards nowadays, you just hook up to the computer and use some software, and all of a sudden you have a mellotron, you have tubular bells, and
Right.
off you go, you know, and you just hit some keys and it sounds good. You record that, you know, the next track, and oh, whoa, oh, hang on, that's cool. So we have tubular bells with mellotron. I love that. You know, let's
Oh,
try
yeah.
some Hammond. You know,
Right. Well, what I've also saw on, you know, on what is it for my Android uh, tablet, you know, they have programs on their apps for piano, for drums,
mm-hmm.
all these things. And so it's like it's so, I guess it's so readily available,
It is. It
you
is.
know, and but you know, obviously to a professional musician, these are like toys, you know.
Well, I mean, just as you're saying, I discovered exactly that about a week ago, lying in bed, you know, and looking at my what is available for music on my mobile phone, and well, there you are, stuff that makes music.
Yeah,
um, as hand pan things or whatever they call that, are terribly expensive. There's a perfectly good copy for Android, you know, and it sounds almost like the real thing, you know. Just play it
right,
with your fingers, you know. And so you just saved yourself like $2,000 or so with a thing you cost nothing, you know.
right,
Why not? I mean, I personally don't like it. I love handmade music.
right.
Um, here goes a little confession, as you probably have noticed, some connection with Bent Knee. They spent some time at my place here in Portugal when they were here, and they're fantastic people. I love them. And I've met them several times. Some members like this and some members like that, you know, like
Right.
Courtney Swain and Vince and brilliant people, all of them. But their latest album all of a sudden has almost no handmade music on it. I love the album the first time I heard it because it's so radical, the latest one. But then I came back to it same months or two later, and I thought, no, there's no handmade music on this. Not, I mean, what I consider handmade, you know.
Right.
As you probably notice on Daymoon albums, there's always a large, very large acoustic component.
Yes.
I love acoustic instruments. That's what for me makes music that I like. You must hear the wood. You must hear the metal from the strings. You must hear the metal from wind instruments. You must hear it vibrate. That's how I like the music. You know? So I don't. Yeah, I hate those neo prog bands. You know, with like 2,000 keyboards, a bass guitar, and a drummer, and a singer who, of course, sounds more or less like someone from Marillion. Not my type. No, I don't like
Right.
that much. So
I like different. Uh, I don't want bands to all start to sound the same. I mean, you get that. I mean, because it's like some of the labels, even though the prog labels aren't like the major labels of the 70s and 80s and 90s, they still kind of are saying, well, we kind of want more of this kind of bands. They kind of tend to sign very similar bands, with maybe some slight variation, but they don't want to take a chance on something that is different because because they've already kind of got their niche already carved out as to what their label is about. And
Daymoon is a niche within a niche within a niche, of course. Absolutely aware of that. Just the other day, I think I told you the story. A major rock and prog magazine in a Central European country offered me to write for us to be on the cover of the large number print magazine. But they wanted money for that, and I haven't got that money. It's not even
right,
all that much, but I haven't got that kind of money, period. That was depressing. That's how it works nowadays. You want to be on the cover. We like you a lot. You're a really great band. You could be the next big thing within this niche, inside the niche. But you would have to invest. Okay, I can't do that. Now, comparatively, I have a niece in Germany. She's a singer in a band called Future Palace, and they're touring at the moment. They have this label that gives them all the money in the world. They're touring all across Europe, Sweden, Denmark, I don't know, Hungary, Switzerland, Austria, the whole shebang. It's like the big
right,
stardom thing. I wouldn't want that. It would be the end of the band, the end of my idea of making music.
right.
Um, even
I mean,
even say, as you say, Neil Morse or um, uh, Transatlantic, etc. I mean, all those big bands in within our niche, that they're big because they can live. They can live on this. It's their livelihood.
right,
Um, Even they are, I think they're pretty much forced to stay within tracks. I cannot imagine that Neil Morse wouldn't want to write something at least slightly different once. I
right.
would find that very hard to believe. But he doesn't, of course not, because it's his livelihood. That's how he, as he gains his bread.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I mean, you got to figure out what it is you want to do with it, with your music, whether you want the music to be, how do they say, a complete cash cow, or if you want it to be art, you know. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping with your stuff. I mean, I know the first two albums are on a label that's on
yeah, yeah,
malls.
yeah,
They
Marcel from Moscow, the dead poor things. But that
you
wasn't a
know
very good deal because we also had to pay our share of the actual albums, so it wasn't really a profitable thing or anything. But
I noticed they had a lot of bands from all over the world on their label. And I don't know what their deals were, but
well, yeah, the
I,
deal was they would release your album, they'd take care of all the artwork, they'd do the advertising for you and all that, and you had to buy a certain number of albums of them. It wasn't all that bad, but pretty much the same deal as always. It's very close to vanity press, if you wish, um, if you will. The
now
say
if I
I can't remember how 500 copies was. It wasn't all that much, but it was still quite a bit.
Right.
And then you receive these at home and you could sell them at shows and stuff, which worked for us fine for the first 2 albums. So we actually did that deal, and we played live, so we could sell those and break more or less even.
Now
But it's still
remember
a fishy deal.
those were those what they call the mini LP albums, right? Where they kind of replicated
Oh, not
record.
ours. No, yeah, no. Unfortunately, not. I'd love to. Yes, I think they had that option, but that would have been more expensive or something.
Right.
They had
And
all
then
sorts of options.
and then I noticed you went on your third album to progressive promotion.
Records. Yes, that's a funny
Yeah.
name. Yes, that's a German label. I don't know if you've heard of the Lorelei Festival in Germany, Night of the
Yes,
Prog.
I
Okay,
heard of it.
he's the organizer of that.
Okay.
He's the German Nick Katona, so to speak. That's Oliver Wenzler.
Well, I remember years ago I used to get promos from that label, unsolicited ones, and
product placement.
there you go.
Non-alcoholic beer.
um, I it was and some of them they never even sent like little, how they have like a promo sheet that explains a little bit of the. I would get these albums and I don't know who are these bands, and but this was like 10, 15 years ago when I first started reviewing, and I would get them. I mean, I was happy to get them, but it was nice to be able to have information about the bands without, having, I mean, I do like when they send you the one piece of paper where it kind of gives you the basics of the band, and then I can go and investigate more, but go investigate things on a blind, without knowing, do they have a website? Because,
Yes.
or things like that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I
I
usually
hope you
get,
liked did you like our press release? I wrote that.
yeah, that was a good,
Yeah. No, that's we have, as you saw probably, we have Thomas Olsson in the band. He's the guitarist, the lead guitarist. And he is the manager and artistic director of Isilda's Bane, a Swedish band, who recorded with Peter Hamill and Steve Hogarth and others. Fantastic band, check them out, really good. And he told me, Fred, you need a press release. Very, yeah. He's also the one who says we're never going to sell an album if we don't tour. But that's a tricky one when you have a band like Daymoon that is scattered over, well, basically 3 countries in Europe. It makes it a bit tricky to actually tour. Not sure how we're going to handle that on the next album, which is even more like that. And I don't know what your take is on that. We might not have a drummer on it, on a lot of the tracks. Will that still be called prog? Will it not? I don't know. Prog without a drummer.
well, they sometimes you go without a guitarist or.
But that's no problem. Who wants a guitarist anyway? Yes, drummers actually sort of make prog. They add the rock element to prog.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know yet. We're not quite sure yet. We'll see.
Well, there's a lot of bands that I notice ones that they're either a touring band where they make their music and then they go touring, and then what you call a studio band, where they do everything in the studio, and maybe do an occasional isolated show, but nothing to a grand extent that most of these rock bands do.
Which is also very difficult. I mean, touring is. I mean, I toured very for a very short time, 2 years, with my band, and only within Portugal, and I found that so tiresome. so exhausting, especially because Damon, we were 8 people on stage, each one playing I don't know how many instruments at the same time. I remember I was playing the flute, a keyboard, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, I don't know, all that kind of stuff hanging around my neck.
Right.
Not the keyboard, but the rest. And someone else was playing percussion plus keyboard plus clarinet, etc. It was a major setup. I don't know, 30, 40 microphones, perhaps. It's really difficult. But I was so tired, I gave up on that. When you play for, say, an audience of 70, it's like, it's just not.
Right.
Uh,
The other thing that I have mentioned to other bands uh, is live stream.
yes.
You get your band into a studio, rent a studio, and then pre-sell tickets for people to watch it on their computer, their tablet, or their smart TV, or whatever
Yeah.
they want
Yeah.
to watch it on, and they can, especially unless you have enough money behind you to do or to get the major cities in the world, you're going to miss a majority of them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you might have a fan. Let's say you might have a fan in Los Angeles, but they can't get to Lisbon for whatever reason. So by having your live show and then on top of it streamed outward to the internet, you're going to get those isolated, people out there that are, that whether they've been with you since the beginning or they just, they get your erosion, or anything in between, of your music, and they like it, but they can't afford to travel.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I mean, it's the next best thing. I mean,
Yeah,
granted,
Bentley do that a lot. Bentley, they have a lot of live shows. They do them at a place called Audio Tree, I think, or something. I don't know exactly what that is. It's a very nice studio, and they do that kind of show. And they're really nice always. We have been offered. Let's see if that works out. I don't know what's going to happen if we accept it. A sort of residence where we can play every weekend at a place that has a burlesque rock show, if you can imagine something
wow.
like that, with fireworks. Lavinia is one of the singers in it,
Oh
and
wow.
actresses. Yeah, she's an actress, TV actress, and theater actress. As you can probably hear on the album, she's very theatrical,
Yes.
very wow, like in your face, and they offered us a sort of residence, uh, performing half an hour about, before the main act, and then if we want to, they have an old tram uh, standing out there, with a bar in it, and we could use that as well, and the band members from Sweden and Italy said, yeah, why not? Yeah, let's do that. They can't, of course, do it all the time, but they could come over for every now and then we could sort of build a dynamic band project around that, so that could become
Right.
Daymoon 5, and probably, as you said, stream the stuff, because the room, especially the tram, is not very big, but it would be great fun, to uh, film it and use some of Lavinia's stage setting skills, and she's really
Yeah.
good at that as well. She does a huge show when she performs. Doing Erosion live with Lavinia would be really fun. I know exactly what she would do, with the heavy stuff on, saying Back Home, where she really sounds like a Nazi. Imagine that, burlesque Nazi. You get something like Cabaret, like Liza
Right.
Minnelli. She would do
Right.
something like, I know her, she would do that kind of thing, like really harsh and really violent. It would be really fun
I
to
mean,
do.
the Prague audiences would. I personally think will love it because we like
Yeah,
something that's
yeah,
a little outside the box,
Yes,
you
yes,
know,
yes, yes, yes.
because if you want something normal, you can find it easily,
Yeah, I'm showing you a typical prog guitarist now during a really emotional, heavy bit. Okay, that's it. Okay, you won't see his face. He'll just look down. He won't move. He'll just play
Right.
the guitar. That's a typical prog concert, isn't it? It's like the
Well,
CD.
that was one of the things that I noticed in the years that I've seen rock concerts from 1993 until the last one was in 2012. You have people that um, that they're comfortable up on the stage, and when they move and they look at the audience, even if they can't see each individual person, but they see that there's an audience out there, and they're moving around on stage, because they're getting into the music. But then you got the ones that, like you said, just they look down. There was actually a style of music in the 90s that um, they gave it a name for people to look down because they're looking at their shoes. They call it shoegaze.
Shoegaze music.
Because they were more interested in their shoes than looking out. I mean, it could have been shy. I mean, it's no, but it's like, or the other thing is when they play note for note what's on the album, play note for note on the album. Uh, I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for me, I don't want, if that's what you're gonna do, I'm gonna stay and listen to the CD again. If I go to see a band live, I want to see them kind of, because there could have been, after you release this album, there could have been more ideas you had in your head. And it's like, oh my God, I should have put, this or that in this part, and that's where live, I think, comes play, where you add those parts that you thought of afterwards.
Yeah. Well, as
Yeah.
you probably noticed, that we have a lot of jazz on this.
Yes.
I mean, especially Luca and Paulo, the Portuguese wind instrument and reed instrument guy. He's from the free jazz and improv scene in Portugal. He organizes this giant improv festival, international thing happening once a year. In 2 weeks' time, I'll be there again. It's horrible music. You can't really listen to it. It's just totally free jazz. It's sort of at the same time it grabs you if you let go.
Right.
Otherwise, it's pretty horrible. But with him and Thomas Olsen, the guitarist, he's also into. He organizes the Malmo Jazz Festival, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong here. So we have very strong jazz component here. I myself, I'm greatly into Tigran Hamasyan, Armenian jazz musician, and lots of jazz as well. So live, there's going to be, if the universe will, uh, and we perform, there's going to be plenty of jazz as well. So once again, we're going to lose fans, of course. Lots of progress who dislike even a saxophone, unless it sounds like on Pink Floyd.
Well, you might gain some, that, because I have a few friends that like the more avant jazz stuff out there. I mean, for me, I have to be in certain mood, but I one thing is this is I never dismiss style because I couldn't get into it. It's like I was, okay, well, it sounds like they're playing, they're the best at what in that field, the genre, that sounds like they're the best in it. and they're very proficient musicians. So, I appreciate that. I mean,
Yeah, I tried
there's
to tame the jazz on our album, especially the latest one. I tried to tame it a bit, so it doesn't really fall completely apart. Although it does a few bits, that's more on purpose, Uh,
well,
but yeah, yeah. Sorry.
years ago, um, a lot of people. I was on a forum called Progressive Ears,
Hmm.
and everybody, it seemed like, was um, talking so much praise for the band Magma.
Yes, yes, I know.
Okay, and
Yes.
and I was like, okay, so a concessions said, okay, try, and I don't remember how to pronounce it, but I only remember the initial MDK.
Yes, that's the only album of theirs that I have, and I bought it
I
at a live show. Yes.
Well, I bought it from a dealer here in the United States because everybody recommended it to me. So and they were saying a lot of great things about it. So I was like, going, okay, well, if all these people are saying it's great. Okay, I'm gonna try it. Bought it, came in the mail, put it in the CD player, listened to the first song, stopped it, took it out, wrote the guy I bought it from. I said, "Would you take this back?"
Yes.
I just could not get into it.
No,
But
it's very
but again,
strange music.
but
Yes.
I get but I appreciated what they were doing, but it just wasn't
Yeah, no, no,
anything I
no,
could
no, no.
handle.
It's very strange. That's a very strange kind of music, Zeul or whatever it's called. That's very odd. Although I discovered a fantastic band within that genre, a Japanese one called Kwenji Yakai. They take that Magma, whom I don't like. Just it sounds stuffy and strange and old to me, but like something from Star Trek, the original series,
Right.
on the strange red purple planet or something. That's what it sounds like to me. Uh, but these Japanese people, they take that as if they were on speed plus cocaine or whatever. I don't know what it is, and take it to such an extreme
Right.
uh, that it becomes rather fascinating, and it turns partially into free jazz and then very aggressive drumming, and that's far out there. That's really cool stuff. I'll send you the name afterwards. Just have a look at them on the internet, and I think you're at least going to laugh. At least that.
Well, I mean, because I got because of that band, um, I got into you mentioned earlier Universe Zero,
Yeah.
and and then um, the offshoot of that, Present.
Yeah. Oof. Ooh. Yeah. But they're
You know,
heavy.
yeah. I mean,
Oh.
I mean, I when I heard one of the vocals, it sounded like the guy was singing with dirt in his mouth. It just sounded, but it sounded so demonic,
It
you
is.
know.
It is.
And I'm like, oh, I mean, I liked it. I mean, it was that was just one of the
Oh.
weird things. It's like I liked that, but I didn't like, So it's like I guess it just depends on how it's presented. But then I just remember you were saying, Magma from the red and purple planet. Maybe this guy's from
Black Planet, yes.
the black and blue planet.
Have you ever seen them live?
No, I
Because
have
yeah,
not.
I said we have this Prague festival in northern Portugal. Stopped during the pandemic. I'm the official translator, so I'm always there, and it's always like pretty big bands, unexpectedly. The headliners are, I don't know, Robert Fripp and the 12 guitarists or whatever, something like that. Um, or Jethro Tull or all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But they also bring over more far out prog, and one of them was Présent. And I think I lost my eyebrows during the concert. That's how loud it was. It was so unbelievably loud that I think half the audience left the room. Uh, and they were followed by an American band. Art Bears or something. I can't remember. It was some funny name. The drummer was playing the drums with wooden spoons and a Barbie doll,
Yeah. Okay.
which came apart during his playing. And I thought, okay, well, I don't know about that. It's a bit
Yeah, I'm
odd.
trying to think of the guy. I know his first name, Dave. But
Yes, that's right.
um,
Yes.
yeah, that's what he. I mean, spoons and Barbie dolls, whatever else probably you can get his hands on. I mean, it, at least it was that's original. I mean, instead of doing, kind of the same old thing
Yeah,
over and
as a
over.
musician, it gives you courage to do other things. If you compare, say, um, my first album, which was very much my own, Ultramarrows, with what I'm doing now. Ultramarrows happened very much at the beginning of me discovering modern progressive rock. Um, and for example, that festival, right? Um, and then we were invited to actually perform Ultramarrows there at that festival, which we did in 2009, long before the album was released. And I was really innocent. I think you can hear it on the album because I hadn't seen all those bands. And nowadays, even Magma influenced me and I don't like them at all, but having seen them showed me that you can do anything you want. Doesn't really matter. You can do anything you want. You can use Barbie dolls if you want to. Lavinia
Yeah, they,
plays an old rusty kettle on Transigene Express that we found in the garden, and she uses that as the percussion in one bit.
oh wow.
I know
Yeah,
it's sorry,
someone said his
yeah,
name
it's on
is Dave.
Joyous Oh Joyous, yeah, which is Joyous Oh Joyous. I think is the one track um, where we go somewhere else. I mean, it's Lavinia's track. In any case, and she did that. All the other musicians just helped, with sounds and
Right.
stuff, but she composed all that. And that's while finalizing the album, right? We're thinking like, should this go in or not? It's hardly music anymore in some places. It's something else, it's a performance, it's theater if you want to.
Yeah,
But yeah,
someone said
no,
his name was Dave Kerman.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So you have this album, you have music, where you learn, and then you've seen these bands. I watch a lot of live prog. I did before the pandemic, because of that. That's once a year, 3 days, massive prog intake, music from anywhere you want, really weird stuff. You might have Rick Wakeman followed by, well, someone who bashes up Barbies or someone, Dave, that kind of thing.
Right.
And when you make your own music, I mean, imagine you buy a keyboard, you follow my advice, buy a keyboard, buy a simple software for your computer, and start composing. What would you do? Would you actually say, okay, yeah, I'll just do what I like, and then you discover that I don't know, you like Genesis, and then all of a sudden it sounds like Genesis, and then, no,
Right.
hang on, until you actually find the freedom to do whatever you want, regardless of what people think, regardless of whether you're going to sell a single copy. I think that's when you're on the right track.
Right.
That's when the music is good enough for yourself. You think, yeah, that's good. This satisfies me. I love, like say erosion. I love every second on this, but I'm the only person in the world probably. A German reviewer said about this. I say this somewhere on the album. If you're probably going to hate half of the album, you're going to love the other half, depending on who you are. If you love all of it, you're Fred Lessing. Um, the reviewer said, I'm not Fred Lessing, so I like a bit more than half. So I
Right.
don't care. I think when you're a musician, when you start, you can do that. I mean, as I said, you get
Right.
a keyboard and you just, why not? You have to think of how free can you be, how far can you take your music without
Right.
looking at whether it's prog. Who cares whether it's prog? Um, I didn't show much of this to our label at the time because I thought, no, this is not really prog. Funnily enough, everyone, this is the best feedback we've ever had for an album.
Right.
Pretty
And
much
so,
across the board, you know.
so anything upcoming albums?
Yes, we are. I've just begun. I don't know if this is inverted, if the image is inverted or not. I don't know. Is it mirrored? I don't know. Is it the
Oh
right
yeah, I
way
see
around?
it. I
Okay,
see it.
it's not mirrored, is it?
No.
No, okay. That's the beginning of what'll be probably the first track on the album. There's a version in score. I normally start in score and then I hand it out to the other musicians. This is going to be fun. It's going to be, I think, going to start with 20 to 30 minutes of purely instrumental music, probably without drums. Simply, because we have no drummer at the moment. Our Andre went to the UK and lives there now. But also because Thomas Olsson, a guitarist and musicologist, he's a musicologist at the University of Lund in Sweden, loves albums without drums. So why not give it a try? Yeah, so we're going to try that. And that's going to be a pretty massive, I don't know what kind of music is this going to be. It's based on a melody that I wrote when I was 14.
Okay.
But you'll only hear it once in 30 minutes for about 20 seconds. And everything, that big track leads to that moment when you hear the melody. It's going to be really massive based on everyone's input and improvisations and that once again transformed into proper music and then etc. It's going to be a really wild ride. There's going to be another old song of mine, a bit in the vein of Melis Casmer on this one, sort of an acoustic thing which I love, called Oceans of the Moon, based on Jules Verne universe. You know, it's like going to the moon, very melodic. Lavinia has some cool ideas already, and Thomas Olsson has these really heady, difficult stuff coming up as well. And I'm talking to a drummer. God, Thomas, you're not listening, are you? So I know there's going to be an album. The working title so far is Wednesday.
Okay.
And it'll have at the core a poem by Sylvia Plath about the moon. Daymoon, haha, what a cheap joke again.
Right.
I love those, just really cheap. But I love Sylvia Plath, and it's going to be at the core of everything emotionally. So it's going to be about night, dark, the feeling of lying on the bed, the moon shines on you, a cold planetary light, or something like that, you know. So that's what where I want to go and end on a magic note with imagination. It's going to be more positive thing without any specific message. But who knows what's going to happen in the meantime? We might have
Right. Yeah, you never know.
something else might trigger something like Trump triggered erosion, you know. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Are you going to release it the same way you did Erosion? You know, through day camp.
That's your toughest question today, because erosion is, as we've exchanged messages before, and you know, it's very hard to get this out. I had no idea how much work a label does. I had no idea. Now I know what they actually did for us. I'm trying to do that. And I'm not being all that successful, I must imagine. I mean, we invested lots of money in this and we're never going to see it again, but we're not in it for the money, are we? Was that Zappa who said that? I don't know. Anyway, something like that. Or if not, then certainly Mike Keneally. So I don't know. If we can find a label, then we'll probably go back to label, to be honest. But we'd need a label, and it needn't be a prog label. I don't know. The next one is not going to be that prog. It's going to be even less prog. There's going to be less rock on than on this, I believe. I imagine, at least. I'm not writing any rock at the moment. I don't know what kind of label would pick this up. Or I'd love to, but why should a label invest money on a niche within a niche within a niche, as you said? Why should they? You know, I don't know. We'll see. Probably we'll just do what everyone is doing nowadays. We'll just release it on Bandcamp only digitally. And
That seems to be what a lot of people are doing. You know, it's Bandcamp. I bought a few albums off of there.
yeah,
Bandcamp, and I know for during the pandemic, the first Friday of every month they would all whatever someone bought from a band, the band got all
the whole lot. Yes, it's
so
Fridays, Bandcamp Fridays. Yeah.
so that's something when something how do you say in the world of Spotify's
Yeah.
it's like a Bandcamp at least is taking care of the artist right
Yeah.
now. I mean, hopefully they'll continue, on that.
But I must say the our sales, which are not which are not good or anything, but 90% are actually the physical album. It's I was expecting more digital sales, and no, apparently prog fans love physical albums, probably because the artwork
Oh yes.
and probably the act. As I myself, I normally buy vinyl even, I love sitting down, headphones on, in the olden days, a whiskey, nowadays, a cup of tea,
Right.
and just listen to the thing, just feels different when you hold it. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
silly. It's silly, but
I have that, obviously behind me. I like owning the CD, or I don't have space in my house for records, but if I did, I would probably own records, the vinyl, and I buy movies, so it's like I like to having that because I know a while back streaming, especially when you're streaming movies, it's like, and also with music, it's licensing. And if a license runs out, that title, whether it's music or movies, gets taken off the streaming side.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
were,
yeah.
if you were using that site as your own personal library, you're going to be in for a shock, because if title is gone 1 month because it's the licensing, people complain about it. Like, how dare they take it off? Well, it's licensed. You gotta. But if you actually own the physical copy,
Yes.
then you don't have to worry about that, and you can put it in your player and
I
listen
see
and
you
watch
have,
it.
for example, you own the license, the physical license, and a beautiful box that I see right up there behind you, a red box with yellow lettering with my all-time favorite band. Yes. Yes. I know it's ridiculous, but if anyone asked me, I would have to say it's Queen. That's the band that influenced me the most. And you won't hear it anywhere on my albums, I think, unless I use the Brian May pedal, which I bought. So a signature thing, So I only used it once, I believe, on Ultramars somewhere. Oh yes, on the actual track Ultramars, where I play a waltz in the very end. There's this waltz thing from Franz Liszt about the merry widower. And that's where I used it the only time ever, I think. So
Well,
that's
I don't. It doesn't. For something to influence you doesn't always I mean, most of the time it does. It means that you're gonna hear it in someone's music, but it could be just how as a musician, the band, you know, you got off the, how um trying to
Well, we
think
always emulate a little, I think.
a little, but you can also take from it their their musicianship of how they record and approach their instrument, and
Yeah.
so it could be both ways. I mean, more often you get people that, it's like if someone says, they're in a band, they say, I love the band, yes. More often than not, you're going to hear
Yes.
yes,
It's very.
and I
Mm,
mean, that's one that, and that's not a bad thing, but it's like, but then if you say, I just like the way, you know, they sound, I like their music, but, and then just approach it from the other standpoint of, from the studio standpoint, whereas instead of trying to sound like them, you sound, you know, because I had one band years ago. They were a young band in their 16, 17, and I believe 18-year-old. And the only connection they had to progressive music was their fathers. And the guitar player sounded like a young Steve Howe.
okay.
And they just sounded like, but it didn't sound like they were copying. They almost sounded like they were in the same, I, I don't know if you would say in the same league, but it's almost like if they started off at the same time period together,
Hmm. Hmm.
because they had that same, and then and the production, it didn't sound like, I think it was 2009. It 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 sounded like it was maybe 1969 or 1970. I mean, they I think they did it purposely like that because they didn't want to have any of the modern conveniences involved. They wanted to have it very authentic, which was for 16, 17, 18-year-old kids to do that. I was amazed, and then to see them live, it was even more amazing because they were very proficient with each instrument. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you get it in different. Unfortunately, they're no longer doing music.
Oh. Oh. Well,
You
did
know.
they have a band or?
Yeah, it was called The Source,
Oh. Oh.
and they were out of the Los Angeles area, and they did 2 albums, and then just kind of disappeared. You
Oh.
know.
I jot that down. So listen to that. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, but some bands are such clones. Did you
Yeah.
know I don't know if you're into Mike Keneally. I'm a big Mike Keneally fan.
I
And
heard some of his stuff.
yes, he's totally mad. And he has this one song. Don't ask me on which album. I've met him a few times in that thingy up in northern Portugal. He played that twice, I believe, or I don't know how many times. A great person, and he has a song on an album where he takes a piss out of Yes, where he puts, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, something like 41 references into 3 minutes from Yes. It's all on purpose. This thing sounds exactly like a Yes song, but like all of them together, and they're all there. And it says so somewhere on uh, in the booklet. So I don't know how many references there are. If you can pick them all, you're good. I think that's clever. I
Right.
I try to do that on Ultramarine. So there's the last one that you shared. Thank you. The sum. There's a bit where I emulated, actually for quite a bit, a Canadian rock pop prog band from the 70s called Clar 2.
Yes.
And they have this track called a Little Neutrino, which was a big thing for me when I was a kid. from their first album, and I tried to emulate them slightly, and one bit on the sum. Hard to spot, but I mean, no one knows Klaatu anyway. But they were my number one band right after Queen at the
Oh
time.
wow.
There's gosh, the album Hope. I don't know if you know that one.
Yeah,
Takes, yeah, takes place on a planet, that's doomed and has a country called Polytsania, and it has a hymn and all that fantastic stuff. Really fun music, Sounds like the Beatles, of course. That's
oh
what
yeah,
they're
that's
famous for. It's their fame, yes. Poor things. Yeah. Okay. Let me know
oh
if you have questions about the album
well,
or
you pretty much
anything really.
actually you told me pretty much a lot about the album and the previous three, were just amazing. The music I like. I was like I told you the other day, I was listening to the albums. I was trying to get them in, listen to them in order. Even though sometimes I like to always listen to the newest one whenever, and it's like it's just so I can see the how you change over each of the albums. And it's like, if anybody is out there that's looking for a band that doesn't stay in the same style,
For longer than 20 seconds.
you're
Yes.
right. They, Daymoon is one. Each album is different, but you don't, but that it's Daymoon on each of the four albums. That's the thing is, you have a familiarity throughout each one, but they differ in styles and
Certainly in sound.
um,
I mean, I think from first to the last one, the sound has changed. I mean, the first one was produced by Andy Tillison, and he played on it, but he had such a rough time with the crappy recordings we did, and everything was re-recorded on that album several times. First by uh, online friends and stuff, and then at the end with my live band. That didn't work all that well. I don't think the first album is uh, does sound fully professional, and Andy Tillison said so. I'll do my best, but he himself was in a difficult position at the time. He was in Paris, and when he wrote Down and Out in London and Paris, I think the Tangent album score was during that time. Tough time for him and for me, and the second one was mastered, not mastered, but was mixed and worked upon sonically by our drummer and keyboarder, Andre. So was the third album. So I think they sound a bit similar, but there was no one professional involved, so to speak. I mean, okay, our drummer's also a sound engineer, but he's not a studio engineer per se. And the last one then was mixed by Vince, who I think is a wizard, an absolute wizard. This last album blows me sonically. I'm really proud of the sound on this. And that's all the feedback we had, that this is the most accomplished album that we did. And in my opinion, the very first really professional album, professional sounding album, even though it was so free and less thought out than the albums before. The others before were really composed, strictly composed. There's hardly any room for improvisation, whereas no, Erosion has lots of improvisation, which then I reincorporated and the band together, and from the improvisation created a piece. I don't know if that shines through at times, that all of a sudden you have an improvised melody, and that improvised melody becomes the main tune on the next track, e.g., that kind of thing. That was fun to do. I think that's the evolution we had as a band. And it's all these different band members, which you probably notice. I mean, hardly anyone remained from album 1 to 4. Only Thomas Olsen remained. Paulo Chagas, the wind and reeds person, and I myself. Everyone else just kept coming, going, moving. Mostly because Portugal was going through a very rough period in 2012. I think we had the crisis, and everyone left. The whole band left. They all just went working on cruise ships and that kind of thing, you know.
Right.
All of a sudden, I had no band, you know, just me and the drummer. There was no one else left. Right. So I think one can hear that if you. I've never done what you did, was listen to our own albums in a row. I've never done that.
Right.
You know? So it must be strange to hear the sound
Well, it's almost like
evolve.
yeah, the evolution of the band. You can hear. I mean, and that's what a lot of times I like to do with any kind of band. I like to hear it from the beginning, because then I can understand how the current album sound, why it sounds the way it sounds. When you get to hear the evolution of the band.
Yeah.
Some bands start off fantastic and then just go downhill, and other bands start off, I wouldn't say bad, but they start off at a certain point, but they keep on going higher and higher, and getting if there was any mistakes on the previous album, they correct them on the next one, and then so on.
Yeah, reviews are very important in that. I mean, I know a lot of prog musicians don't read reviews. I'm reading Stephen Wilson's new book. Stephen Wilson from Porcupine Tree brought out a book. It was great fun to read. And he talks about this kind, what do musicians read reviews? Yes, they do. And actually, they're very important. When all of a sudden you see that there's a consistent thing where people saying it doesn't sound good, it doesn't sound professional or something, then you think, God, you're not going to repeat that. Let me think about it. How can you do it?
Right.
How do you do it better? With this album, I'm really surprised that we have a lot of new fans. Our fanship, I said, lots of fans disappeared, but we have lots of new fans, and many of them don't even know what prog is. I'm very, very proud of that. People like that, they become personal friends all of a sudden. There's this guy Eric Flederson from Holland. We've become personal friends through this, and he doesn't even know what prog is. He has no idea. He's just a Daymoon fan. He says it's fantastic music.
Right.
Great. This is so good. Leave prog behind in a way.
Right.
Of course. Yeah. But in the end, it's prog. Everyone says. One tries.
Right.
It's all I know how to do. Prog.
So I guess one question would be, is this, I know that this one, Erosion, it shows 2021, and then I noticed in some places it says 22.
Oh, yeah, because this was ready, so to speak, in terms of recording and even mixing and all that, already in 21.
Okay.
We had planned to release this still in 21, but then there were several hiccups, unexpected ones, especially with actually getting this printed. The printing was very difficult, and so it got delayed, and then turned out to be February 22.
Oh, okay.
That's
all right. So I guess it would be, I guess, in a way, too soon to ask if, when the next one.
I'd love to say you're like, well, this year still. No, certainly not. Definitely not. Especially if we're going to have that residence I told you about. And I don't know how the band itself in terms of members is going to evolve, all of a sudden we might have people coming in to perform regularly live in Portugal, so we'd have more Portuguese musicians. Mightn't happen, we don't know. I have no idea, but well, give or take 6 years. That's how long this one took.
right.
But I'd hope much faster, because I have a very clear idea of what I want the album to sound like. And once I have have Paulo, Luca, and Thomas working on this, they're very intense. Once they're on it, they're really quick. Then it comes back to me. I'm very laid back and slow, and I have to digest, listen to it a million times, and then make their stuff sound Daymoonish.
Right.
That's my job, add whatever it takes, and then that takes a while. Gosh, that takes a while. And if we're gonna have a drummer, oh dear.
Well, you never know. It's like you could find one.
Oh, we have one. It would be the one from All Tomorrows. That's my former brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
He was a drummer on All Tomorrows, at least on most of it. And he's very good. He's a heavy metal drummer, and he has a heavy metal and rock band, and I think 2 of them or so. And he would only be able to do studio work, but he's really good. He studies. He's one of those people who studies Mike Portnoy. He takes Mike Portnoy's videos, training videos, and sits down. It's really good and exact. I don't know how that matches with our current music. I don't know. No idea. We'll see. But anyway, I don't know how long it's going to take. If we find a label, yes, then it's going to be much faster.
Right.
Because then I can just say, Luca, Thomas, and come to me to Portugal, stay with me for a month. Thomas usually does, the guitarist. He comes from Sweden once a year and stays with me for several weeks, and I put him in the studio and say, work. All right, so yes, he does most of the work with me in the studio here in Portugal. Not all of it. And if I had that kind of money, I'd just say to all of them, come here, I'll pay for the time you're here. But I'd need a label for that. So many incognito things, and I don't know. But there's going to be one, definitely. And probably called Wednesday.
Well, that's, what, sometimes I like one word titles, because it's easier sometimes to remember.
Yeah.
And especially if you got the one word titles, and then you have a complex music, it's like nice little contrast there.
Yeah, this erosion was supposed to be called in the beginning iridescent. Then it changed to music for concerned citizens with a natural instinct for science, and in the end, erosion.
I think erosion is a perfect title. I think
that was my daughter's idea. She also did the design, the cover design, and all that. She's Photoshop specialist. And she said, "Hey, well, erosion," and she gave me the idea she designed the logo, etc. Wednesday is going to be a bit drier and more poetic, I think. We'll see. I don't know. No idea. Okay.
All right. Well,
we could go on forever.
I know. We can save for another time, in the future as you can
meet up regularly. How about that?
Yeah. And then, as you're getting closer to the next, or if something else musically happens, we can talk about that sometime in the near future.
Yeah. As soon as I have the first bits, for example, show you a little bit or something if you no, it's really a pity because I'd love to go on. But I have to make supper.
Ah, yes. That's getting that time here too.
Okay. No, it's a bit past already, but I'm making a watermelon salad with cherries and feta cheese.
Oh, there you go.
And Nigella seeds. Yes, I make progressive music or eclectic food. Sorry,
There you
progressive
go.
food.
There you go. All right. Well,
You can come over. You're welcome.
oh, that's going to take a long time.
Okay.
And so thank you again for taking your time out on your Saturday. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, wonderful
And
to talk to you finally.
we should be neighbors.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, we could like talk shop all night long. I'm 100% sure.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I'm sure.
And
All
I'd
right.
show you around my hometown, which is, if you look it up, is very pretty.
Yeah, we're
Sintra.
definitely going to look that up.
You're gonna love it, and you probably decide to come over.
It'd be nice one day, one day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just look it up. Sintra is very magical. It's a really magical place. It's called Mons Lunae in Latin, which means the mountains of the moon.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah, I know it's a
That-
cheap joke again, but it's true. It's funny, but it's true. You know that, and it's full of palaces and lush vegetations, and about 12 minutes by car from the next beach.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, yeah, and full of the mountains are full of like underground grottos and things. It's very, very mystical and magical. So have a look at Sintra on the. Oh dear, sorry. Hang on, just a second. That was my wife. I think she's hungry.
Okay. Well,
Calling. I'm okay.
we'll talk again soon. And
Yes,
thank you.
Ron.
And thank you again, Brad. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Absolutely. I had a great time with you.
You too. And
Okay.
all right. Talk